the VivoBarefoot Primus Lite IIIs, a shoe that has definitely made itself known in the ever-growing world of minimalist footwear. But are they any good? Or at least, do they live up to the hype that they received upon release? After suffering from fallen arches, rolled ankles, countless knee problems, all stemming from the unfortunate combination of being both overweight and pretty active, I decided to try better shoes. That being shoes with more support to help me in my everyday. That didn't do the trick, so my next best option was to get better feet. And because I don't yet have such well-established connections to the underground foot market, this is where VivoBarefoot came to facilitate my foot improvement journey. So I've been wearing this shoe, two of them in fact, for about a year and a half now. And I think after a year or a year and a half, I have a good enough gauge in order to give you a solid, balanced perspective about the shoe, how it is, and just to really let you know where I stand on the matter. And that's exactly what I'm going to do now. So without further ado, here is my 1 year review of the VivoBarefoot Primus Lite IIIs. Let's go. Coming in at around €150, these shoes are quite a hefty investment, especially if you're just dipping your toes into the world of minimalist footwear. And there are definitely cheaper alternatives, cheaper minimalist footwear that will be half decent. But as a UX designer by day, I'm a huge sucker for well-designed payment systems that manage to take away all of the friction. And that's exactly what VivoBarefoot have done. They did a great job at this. So this is an example of what the process would look like in order to buy a pair of VivoBarefoot shoes. First of all, find the shoe that you want to purchase, so in our case the Primus Lite IIIs. Select the What's My Size option underneath the available shoe sizes. You'll see the sidebar pop up, so if you're over 16, hit accept and get my size. You're next presented with a QR code, and if you grab your phone and scan it, you'll see something along the lines of this. Paper, foot. Put the paper against the wall, scan your foot on the paper with your heel against the wall, and then just follow the final instructions and then just wait. Finally, we'll see this code that we want to put into the desktop, and then we'll be presented with our shoe size. And this is the information it gives you. So you're presented with the size that Vivo recommends that you purchase for their shoes in particular. You get a more in-depth view of your foot size. You also get a view of how snug your foot is going to fit in different VivoBarefoot sizes. So 8 UK to 10 UK in my case, with orange being very snug and blue being very spacious. It does kind of feel weird that I'm praising a company for managing to make me part with my money, but it is what it is. They did a really good job. And I think it's also worth mentioning that the more people that buy minimalist shoes, the cheaper they're going to be in the long run. The economies of scale and that jazz. This brings me on to the fit of the shoe, because when I got the shoe, I was super surprised. I've always suffered from having super wide feet to a point where I'd have to go a size up in order for them to fit the width of my feet. And even when I did find shoes that I found somewhat comfortable, they were still cramped, and I do believe that they've messed with my foot function over time. But these Vivos, they have a great toe box, which allows for the splaying of the toes, which just gives you more control, which gives you more balance, which makes you a lot more confident on your feet. Now, this isn't specific to VivoBarefoot Primus Lite IIIs. It's not specific to even VivoBarefoot as a company. This is kind of a signature of minimalist footwear in general. I just thought I'd mention the width because it's a really big reason to want to buy minimalist footwear like this. And also I would like to point out that VivoBarefoot, the material they use, is really good for accommodating the foot, and it gives you that extra bit of leeway for extra wide feet like mine. So let's look at the pros of the design. So when you're looking for barefoot shoes, they're meant to emulate natural body mechanics. You aren't meant to feel restricted by the shoe. It is purely there for protection against the elements and judgmental eyes. But the Primus Lite 3s, they do a really good job at this for 3 different reasons. First reason, look at this. This is awesome. I can bend the shoe however I want, and there's basically no resistance. I can probably make balloon animals from this if I wanted to. And this is particularly helpful for me when I'm on trails and I'm stepping over rocks and branches, and I need that extra bit of stability that the added surface area gives me from being able to bend my foot. So a 4mm thick sole is really good for me. I love it. It's really good for flexibility. Second reason, they are incredibly light. I know there are lighter shoes on the market, but in my head at least, at some point it just becomes diminishing returns. There's no arguing that these shoes are super, super light and you won't have a problem with it. My third and final praise here is just how quickly they dry. The majority of my life has been spent in either England or Ireland, and so I think it's fair to say that I'm no stranger to the rain. When I'm wearing these shoes, I don't really need to worry about them getting drenched because really there's not much material to get wet. They dry so quickly. I can just give them maybe 15 to 30 minutes and they're good to go. Durability. Now, as I said before, I've had the shoe for around 1.5 years, and granted they've exceeded my expectations when I initially bought them. They are a solid build. I do have some mixed feelings, however, as there are just definite ways, easy ways for this to be improved, and I think there were just a number of deal breakers for me if I knew before. Initially, I was worried about the area at the side of the shoe where the shoe folds, but that ended up being surprisingly resilient. I was also worried about the sole peeling from the shoe, but I had nothing to worry about there. It seems to be going strong. I wasn't, however, expecting issues at the top of the shoe where the mesh material is. And I think this is going to be a bigger problem with people who are just starting to get into barefoot, so I think it's worth noting. Because I hadn't learned how to splay my toes properly when I walk, my big toe has actually rubbed a hole in the top of the shoe.
Hello.
This problem is actually just a matter of improper gait mechanics, and I do think that the people who buy barefoot shoes are going to start looking at improving their gait, and this likely won't be a problem. However, if we're going to call these entry-level barefoot shoes or entry-level minimalist shoes, I think this is a problem that should really be covered, and it would be a reason why I wouldn't buy this shoe as my first barefoot shoe. Now, I also wasn't expecting the seal around the ankle to be the absolute bane of my existence, but it has definitely proven to be it. It's just too loose around the edges, and what that means is that the things that you bought this shoe to protect your feet against just end up in your shoe anyway. I live in Sweden, and in Sweden when it gets cold and icy enough, they put gravel on the ground to give you grip, and I think that's probably the same with most countries. But if I wear these shoes in that time, every 20th step, I'm not even exaggerating, I'm gonna have to take my shoe off and I'm gonna have to empty what's in my shoe. And it's gonna be a handful of rocks. That's exactly what I don't want from a pair of shoes, is to have the outside inside my shoe. It's actually even worse now that I've taken out the inner sole, because the fabric on the inside is actually really weak, really brittle, and the stones have gone inside the fabric, and so I've got little stone-like bumps on the inside of my shoe, and they're really hard to get out. But that's my fault, because I'm an idiot who decided to take the soles out, the insoles. In fairness, Vivo have done a pretty decent job at addressing this particular issue with things like knit material. So we have here the VivoBarefoot Racer knits, and you can kind of see that it has a sock-like material, an elastic material at the ankle. They are far from perfect, but I can absolutely say that my relationship with stones has dramatically increased after getting the VivoBarefoot Racer knits. So, to conclude, the VivoBarefoot Primus Lite IIIs, are they worth your time? Look, if you're trying to get into the world of minimalist footwear, I can see why these shoes would be appealing because they look cool, they're not going to attract too many eyes, and they are a really versatile pair of shoes. But some of the issues that I raised with durability would be enough for me personally not to be able to justify this shoe if I was looking at minimalist footwear again. Now, I really like VivoBarefoot as a company. I really like the products they make. I think they have great style and I love what they stand for. And I actually think that supposing they hold up as well as I expect them to, the VivoBarefoot Racer knits are a much better bang for your buck than the Primus Lite IIIs. And I guess only time will really tell for this, but I'm really enjoying these at the moment and I've had them 2 months and they're holding up pretty well. Now, do I recommend barefoot shoes altogether? Yeah, I do, but with a few caveats. Because I do think that a lot of people enter the realms of minimal footwear blind. And I do also think that minimal footwear and barefoot movement is susceptible to falling into the trap of polarization, where you have like avid support of barefoot movement and barefoot footwear, and you have avid opposition of barefoot shoes and barefoot footwear, and really there's very little room in the middle to discuss the good and the bad of barefoot movement and barefoot shoes, and just really understand it for what it is. If you're interested in hearing what I have to say about that, then take a chance on me and hit that subscribe button. This is my first video. I absolutely want to improve on this one, and I've got a ton of ideas that I would really like to get out into the world, so that should be exciting. And as for what I'm going to do with these shoes, well, these are no longer my daily shoes anymore, but I do want to use them for a little experiment in grounding or earthing. And if you haven't heard about that, you should definitely look it up because it's pretty interesting. Now, my initial impression is that it sounds like BS, but look, I'm open to new ideas. I don't know enough about the topic to ridicule it, and hey, at the very least it's going to be fun. So yeah, if you're interested in seeing how that experiment turns out, then stay tuned for future updates. Catch you later.